Welcome to the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm Rashtian. Each week I sit down with people in the legal world and beyond to talk about the strategies that are actually working for them in law, in life, and everything in between. Real conversations, real lessons, and ideas you can actually use. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm Rashtian, your host. Today we have with us Scott Aldridge. He is in cybersecurity, IT governance and organizational resilience. He's a CEO of IP Services and president of the IT Process Institute, where he helps organizations simplify complex cybersecurity and risk challenges into practical business strategies. He's also the best-selling author of Visible Ops Cybersecurity series, with more than 345,000 copies sold worldwide. But that's not what all Scott does. He's also an entrepreneur and has other businesses, including TrialLine, which we are hoping to learn more about today. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks for having me, Mason. I'm excited to be here. By the way, enjoyed your podcast, listened to several of them, and it's good stuff that you're doing out there, getting really good information out to your audience. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us, take a couple of minutes and tell us about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah, I start talking about myself and I start dating myself. I'm turning into an old guy. I kind of spun off into a company called MicroAge back in about 1999, 1988, 99, just before 2000. And we were doing a lot of network integration and spinning up a lot of technology for companies, doing some early on digital transformation stuff. Of course, a part of that was managing IT security, because in the 2000s, we called it IT security. We didn't use the buzzword of cybersecurity that we all know it as today. And so that really launched me in, and as owning a series of franchises within the Fortune 500 of MicroAge, where we did a lot of technology services. We spun out, or originally dubbed, our advanced networking group that was doing the security type stuff. And that really moved us into the managed services business, where we deliver a variety of different, and now technically the last 9 years, we really go with the managed security services provider, where we deliver a set of services. We start a lot of times with virtual CISO or virtual chief information security officer. We're looking at, compliance and governance, and then moving into the actual, technologies that happen. But my career really launched when I was 19 in software, and then reinvented myself from software business, from retail to development, into the network integration, into the managed services, and now, as the last 8 or 9 years, as IP services, just simply the MSSP. And work with a lot of different industries, particularly industries that deal with compliance. So the law industry, legal industry is, some of our sector that we support, as well as manufacturing that has compliance, or, certain types of financial services, CPAs, advisors, those kinds of things. And then also healthcare with HIPAA regulation and so forth. Healthcare pharma is also some of the companies we work with. And as you mentioned, I also am a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I own another little company, I should say, not that little, but a company that owns some SaaS, software as a service businesses. And one of the kind of main businesses in that group is called TrialLine, which really is about a showcase, and our tagline is really show your case and win. And so in TrialLine, it really, takes on what a lot of particular people in the legal industry, and it's very much specifically designed for the law or legal industry. So it's the ability within 30 minutes or an hour, you can actually put a presentation together that is powerful with different views, modes, documents, YouTube videos. It sometimes would take people days to finagle and finesse Microsoft PowerPoint, which is what a lot of people default to doing. There are a few competitors out there, but not a lot in that space. So that's another business that I'd be happy to chat with you about today.
Okay, let me ask one question about security. When it comes to attorneys and their websites, there's compliance they have to abide by, correct?
Yeah, there are some particular regulatory. Well, they're not really. It's the industry. If you're dealing with clients, for example, that have HIPAA or different things, of course, that extends to the data and the access that you're touching and using in that case. But there definitely is, some requirements, particularly around, being handicapped, laws, that making sure that it's accessible in that way and visible. there's a lot of different stuff, that must be looked at. But the website part is to some degree somewhat minor, and to this day it's somewhat automated if you're using any of the content management platforms and stuff out there. But you do start with the website. You don't want to get your website hacked, and you want to be compliant, right? So
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing anything on my website. That's why. Okay, so TrialLine. So does it work with every niche, meaning personal injury, family law, estate planning, or is it only specific to certain parts of the law?
yeah, so it really, again, those that are doing litigation or in court cases, or right, you're presenting something. That's the part where it's most useful, right? It's that presentational layer, and then a way to kind of really organize the information and the documents. It's got opportunity, like you can put Bates numbers on there, things that you can do this design. But the idea though is that you can actually show, there's like a carousel view or more of a linear view. You can actually pull up and look at a document. Maybe the other thing is that the features in building the timeline, you can share your timeline with experts. So you might have a medical expert or a medical person that is going to be presenting, and they can actually add notes and various things to the timeline, so you can share collaboratively. And then we've just built in some new AI features, so you can actually get the base of your timeline up literally in just minutes. You can tell it that you've got a certain date range and a certain amount of pillars to build out, if you will, of the case, and it will be able to immediately, with AI, as we know, right, be able to give you that baseline. Of course, if you're going to finesse with different types of features like uploading specific documents and stuff, that you'll have to do within the console. But it's very easy to use. We also have an offline version of it, so that if you're in the courtroom and you had spotty Wi-Fi, even though it's a SaaS based, you can actually download the timeline to an iOS device, an iPad, or even an iPhone, but an iPad particularly is the ideal, and still be able to share the information about your case. There's a lot of science around colors and about presentation and how it impacts juries and those kinds of things. So there's also a lot of, in a sense, science built into the way that the tool is built. The history is that it was actually built by a gentleman who did a lot of technology within the courtroom. So he was doing a lot of the setting up the cameras and a lot of the video presentation and audio stuff. And his wife is an attorney who was in litigation, and she said, I need a better tool to present the cases. And so that's the founder. Well, we bought the business about 5 years ago. The founder who built the first iterations or versions that we've evolved actually was kind of for attorney by an attorney. So that's a little bit the history of the product and the tool.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine for trial that would be a gold mine. I mean, when you go to trial, you have your booklets, and you have to put pictures up. Something like this would be great to have.
Yeah. And it's very easy to use. Like I said, that's the biggest emphasis. We've really designed it so it's very intuitive, and it's quite frankly pretty affordable. It's a SaaS model, so you can do it monthly. You can buy a seat license for the year. So it's a pretty affordable way to attack it.
So can teachers use it to set up, teaching online?
Yeah, interesting. We do have some other types of users, even though it's kind of built, by and for the legal industry. We actually do have other folks, some private investigators that are using it in different ways for stuff that they're doing that may or may not be case or court related. And then, of course, teachers, yeah, and even in law school instructors, we actually have done some special student licensing for students to be able to get familiar and use it in their classes and courses as they're doing mock cases and so forth. So yeah, very much can be used, and a teacher could use it to present, a teaching or instruction. It could bring it to life. So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine if you have a big firm, and you can probably use it as a mock trial, even just to make sure you got everything going on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it really has some case management support features because of the document library that you can upload into and have everything in one repository. So it's not a full, we certainly aren't trying to be, some kind of a, law firm software that's running your law firm. We have integration with like Clio. So there's the ability to integrate some different things. You can upload spreadsheets and different things to get data or create timelines off of them in addition to the AI. So there's a lot of built-in features that make it really easy, and it's even used in mediation, honestly,
right,
for certain cases as well.
So I just want to make sure it's not a software like you said, like Clio. It's something that works with hand in hand with Clio.
Yeah, it's not a case management tool, but
Got it.
it has augmenting features to
Okay.
case management because of the repository documents. Again,
Okay.
being able to record certain information in there and be able to refer to it or bring experts into it as well. So
Got
it
it.
can help with the overall management of a case, but it's not trying to be a Clio. It'll integrate with some of the case management stuff. So
I use CasePeer for my case management software. Does that integrate with it?
not directly, I don't believe, but again, we do have the API capability. So if somebody needs to map it to an API
Okay.
to be able to get access, there are things that can be done. But generally, it's very easy to just load documents up and have a repository within it and pull stuff over. Usually,
Okay.
most of those tools will export, right, or it'll create different information. Then you could upload it into the AI, so you could print out a PDF or a report or save a file and then upload it into your AI and say, hey, reorganize this from my other case in such a way that it'll present on the timeline. And
Okay.
the AI would go off and do that. The AI is, not perfect as any AI, right? It is guessing and it's generating. So you still want to pay attention like any AI, but
Right.
you want to be careful with it. And it is a privatized LLM. So there it's not shared, it's not public, it's
Oh,
not
that's
something
good.
that can be learned on. That's a pretty important thing I've been reading about in the legal industry. A lot of clients, like my, just typical clients, don't realize that loading up a bunch of information about your case now all of a sudden might take away attorney-client privilege, as I understand it. So that's an
Oh
issue.
yeah.
Yeah,
You want to make sure if you use ChatGPT, it's closed. So your information doesn't get into
yeah,
cyberspace. That's
yeah,
number one. And number two is things like Claude. Yeah, you could get in trouble if you're not watching what you're putting out there because it's not a good thing.
sure.
Um, does it? And I'm sorry, I haven't looked at it, and I would really love to test it out after our
Sure.
conversation here. Um, would it create graphs for you, stuff like that, based on the
So
information?
it doesn't necessarily, it has a preset way that it'll actually present it, which is kind of designed for more of a courtroom environment.
Okay.
But the creation of graphs and stuff are things that you would save. Other tools can create Canva and things can create those very easily, and then you would save and be able to upload those and present them. Not a problem. It really is designed to kind of tell a story, and
Okay.
that's really what you want to pull people in with, right? Using color and video and various timeline features to understand dates and how things came into play, or if we're dealing with personal injury, which is a lot of I'd say a bigger part of our customer base, quite frankly, is in the personal injury space, because there's medical
Mhm.
chronology that has to be dealt with, and it can help do that with the AI and put some chronological order to it. A
Okay.
lot of documents there sometimes to weed through and try to make sense of and get dates on, so people can understand how the injury lapsed or came back, or how it was rehabilitated, etc. All the cost, right? The medicines, the medical pieces, all those stuff that come into play. But you're really telling a story in a very visual way, and that really pulls in, right? Your juries, quite frankly, in a lot of cases, and they really start to understand it a deeper layer because of the way it's presented.
Okay.
And again, there's science behind that. So
Okay. So it can create a chronological order, right?
yes,
That's
yeah,
okay. That's
yep.
actually very important in our industry. A lot of times that becomes important than anything else because you want to be able to show, you're right, a story about how the injury started and what it caused. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, all the views are interactive, so you can like click on them and drill down and pull up a YouTube video or an MP4. If you had some specialist or expert develop a particular video uh,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of the word where they've kind of recast or reinvent the accident or the situation or whatever, right? They recreate it visually, and so you can embed that, show it, bring it right back into your timeline. Those are some of the kinds of things that you can do very, very easily to do, quite frankly.
Okay. Okay. So what kind of feedback are you getting from trial attorneys using this?
Yeah, they love us. I mean, I think I alluded to this a little bit. There's honestly not a ton of competitors out there. You can find 3 or 4 of them out there. The biggest competition is in some of the bigger case management software stuff that you know attorney practices use, like yourself. Some of them, the bigger one, 3 or 4 of them, they'll have their own built-in kind of timeline type stuff, and it's very not visual. It's very linear. It's very texty. So it doesn't really grab. Doesn't have a lot of coloration. So there's a lot of limit. They almost look like Gantt and perch charts. So that's another issue. So the fact that that there's just not a lot of other tools that can do this, and ones that do it really well. I think, our client base just loves it, right? They come in, and a lot of times they'll have to use it for a particular, trial, a particular type of trial, because we know that most of them don't go to jury trial. So they might, start to use it to build out with even just to build kind of a synopsis and to help kind of manage the case with their experts and with their clients. That's one use. But then the biggest use, of course, is when they're actually presenting in a mediation or a trial or litigation of some nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how can folks get a hold of you?
Yeah. So you can, it's, www.trialline.net or .com. We have both. And that's 2 L. So it's TRIAL and then LINE right there. And the cool part is you can sign up for a no cost demo. You do have to put some information in, but then you get a trial of, I believe it's 7 days, and you won't be charged. And then if you want to, of course, go for a license at that point, you can do it. But it's a full working version once you log in. So it's, you can get all the features and see everything that it can do. So the best way, honestly, is just to go right to the site, set up for that trial, and check it out and test it out. And I also am happy to provide a contact email of the person that kind of runs a lot of our marketing and sales side of the house, which is Ashley Sims. And you can get her at ashley.sims@trialline.net. So that'll work as well.
Okay.
Another way to get a hold of us. Yep.
So what are the challenges of letting the attorneys know about your product? I'm sure not everybody knows about it.
It is. It's hard to get the word out there, quite frankly. That is a bit of a challenge, and I probably know this because you live in that space, right? You're certainly not going to pick up the phone and call attorneys, right? They're on the phone all day. They've got lots of time to bill for. So we've been using a lot of kind of strategic relationships and partnerships. Matter of fact, one of the things we're doing right now is we're looking at various partnerships and talking to 3 or 4 of them where they have a lot of relationship, already have clients that are attorneys, and then they could bring in our tool, if you will, and our solution, our software, to kind of partner, because it may be complementary to what they're doing. And so that's one way to get the word out there, is to kind of find people that are already have, a good contingent of, attorneys as clients and law firms as clients, and then introduce our software that way. But we do a lot of LinkedIn outreach. We do some cold mail outreach. We kind of do all the typical marketing stuff that people do, but and podcasts.
As far as I assume it's integrated with Zoom, so you can use everything that's on there on Zoom depositions.
In theory, yeah. I mean, you could obviously share it. It's, just because it's in a web screen. So anything you could share normally, you can share the trial lines as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. So aside from TrialLine and cybersecurity, what else do you do? Tell us.
We have a company called dropsend.com, which is really about making it really easy to share large files and securely. And so that's another one that's kind of it. And there's some cloud storage. We're really not competing with the big cloud storage people. It's more about the, kind of elegance and simplicity of sending and sharing large, gig, 2 gig, 3 gig files. So that's called dropsend.com. That's another thing I have my hand in as well. And then we have kind of a commercial property division that does some various investments with commercial property as well. So kind of diversified into all those areas. But honestly, my bread and butter, or what my, kind of my passion is, as you mentioned when you open up, is really around cybersecurity. And obviously, with the onset of AI and all the things going on today, it's becoming, quite the topic. And I have a lot of deep expertise in that area. And we work with a lot of different companies, again, a lot that deal with, very highly confidential data, sensitive data, which would be a lot of people in the legal industry. And of course, those that might be facing compliance, because compliance they're adding to the compliance that has to be in place. And sometimes we look at those things as just bureaucracy. But in the case of, keeping, information secure and private, you can, we see this, right? We read it in the news all the time, the hospitals that are getting ransomwared. And, I sometimes tell the story about the MGM resort, right? One phone call actually was able to change an email address from a guy that he picked off his name and his title from a LinkedIn account that was an MGM administrative network administrator. Called in, call center, got him to change the passwords in a reset. They used the reset, Over the next couple of days, he broke in, and we go east to west, as we say, inside the network. He started to experiment with different parts of their network, invited a couple of ransomware groups in because they'll partner up. They're all very much willing to partner. Brought them in, and they basically ransomware and shut the MGM resort down for all of their critical systems for 26 days.
Wow.
Cost them about $100 million. And then just here several months ago, they settled on a class action suit with the data that was stolen for another $48 million. So I kind of tell the story sometimes that one phone call cost a company $148 million. Now, admittedly, it's a casino, it's one, but here's the other thing. Because they're big in enterprise, they have all the smart guys, they have all the systems, they have all of the threat detection, they have all those pieces in place, and security operations centers on call on demand in their own systems, and yet, right, they still got breached. So we talk a lot about cybersecurity from the lens of people, processes, and technology, often overused, but it's real. Each one of those domains has to have security thought through. Do we train our people? Are we making it aware? Are we sending out, CEOs as part of their newsletters, doing the cybersecurity corner, reminding them regularly that we've got to be aware? Because the hard part, right, is the social engineering. 70% of all the threats out there and the bad things that happen in terms of breaches, they start with the end user. They start typically with email of some sorts, and you'll click on a site or an email link that you didn't think was, you think you stopped just in time, but you don't realize, or going to a website didn't look like anything happened, but sometimes it'll deposit a little malware behind the scenes you didn't even know got deposited. And if your IT and security teams aren't doing their job, that stuff will eventually, they'll sit there for weeks and months, and they'll just sniff on your network. And often everybody's like, well, we got good backups, and then we overtrust our IT people because they said, oh, no, we're secure, they're streamed off site. Those threat actors, they'll sit there and they'll watch where your backups are going, being streamed off to some other data point or data center or cloud, and then they'll encrypt those backups as well. So you get the kind of the double dip, right? You think, oh, we're good. And then so many companies that we hear about, and we've been brought in ex post facto, they think that they were protected to find out their backup. So what's the trick there? Number one is that we always assume breach when we start a conversation. Let's just assume the worst. What are we going to do? Do we have an incident response plan? Can we recover to a point in time that's acceptable? Are our backups what we call immutable and air gapped, meaning that they're scanned for malware and ransomware and then set to a place that you cannot reach them from your network? So if the threat actor's in there moving around, he can't even get to them. So you've got an out of band, disaster recovery, business continuity piece in play. And anymore, it's not that expensive to do. It's just about time, energy, and effort, but it's doable. So that's kind of the thing, right? Because that's the one thing you want to be able to do with ransomware being the biggest threat that's out there. And there are lots of other threats. I don't want to downplay those. You want to be able to, if that screen of, text comes up when you log in, everything's locked up and says, give us, 50 Bitcoin. You want to be able to just ignore it and say, you know what, it's a bummer. We're going to be down for a day, but we'll be back up tomorrow because we know we have a plan. We know it's tested. We know it makes sense. We know we have immutable air gap backups. That's probably the one thing, if I was going to preach on something, that's the thing I would preach the most on.
So should people start with you guys from the very beginning before they even start their business, or what point of business should they get a hold of you?
I think, it's a security first mindset that has to be at the forefront. So you got to be willing at the executive level layer, right? The owners, the CXOs, the VPs, the firm owners, the firm partners, they all got to care. The board, they've got to care these days because it's not an IT problem or just an IT security issue. It's a business problem now. It's that prolific. Insurance is another problem. They're putting all kinds of fine print in the last 2 years. Almost 40% of insurance on cybersecurity got denied last year. So they're learning that if you don't have these particular controls in place around your security, we're not going to pay the insurance claim. So yeah, I think it's important we start with governance and risk, and we kind of have a good dialogue about what that looks like. Certainly, most attorneys understand the legal implications. If you don't, you definitely want to do some legal analysis on yourself and your own policies and contracts and procedures. So we always encourage that. But then we'll pick it up from hey, this is how we get it done. This is how we roll up the sleeves and take your posture up to the level where it really should be. So it really is going to be compliant in the truest sense of the word. And if the unthinkable does happen, we've already assumed the breach happened. So we've got backup, we've got restore, we know it'll work, it's immutable.
You know what the problem is? You could be as safe as possible. Every single email that comes in, you look at it. And that one time that you're tired or you're about to leave the office or early morning, it looks just like the regular thing, the normal one. You click on it and you're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. It just
Yeah.
takes one click. It's that crazy. And that's the world we're in right now. And they're getting so unique and tricky in the way that they do things, the way that the threat actors are learning. And the thing is that landscape out there in the dark web, quite frankly, one of the things that people overlook is that they've got franchise as a service. So we have labs you'd never go on the dark web normally. It's as bad as you would ever think it is. The stuff you can find on there, the illicit drugs and things that can so easily be bought, purchase, all the stuff. But the big thing that was interesting when I was on there a few months ago, they kept popping up with this pop-up like on a website and said, join our franchise, our ransomware franchise today. Like they're going after, so you're a high school kid that's smart, you want to be a little nefarious and do some bad activity or whatever, you can join their club for $295. They'll give you a toolkit to scan networks, Wi-Fi, etc., find how to break in. If you have a problem, they said you can escalate to our experts and we'll help you, and then we'll split the proceeds. Oh, by the way, when you're ready to convert the Bitcoin or whatever crypto you're asking for, our call center at the 1-800 number can do the transaction from US currency to the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency that's needed to settle. So they've got these full advertisements that they're advertising on the dark web that you can just join up. It's a business. It's crazy.
That's scary. Holy moly.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more I hear, the more
it is.
I get worried now.
There's a lot out there. It really is. So,
and you know what? It's funny. I always tell everybody, the internet and everything out there is supposed to make our lives easier, but it's become to a point where it's becoming harder. Everything you do now, you need double and triple, factor checks and this and that, and God. Yeah. So as far as what AI is doing, is that making things a lot worse for you guys, or is it helping, or is not? Is it too early to tell?
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where, quite honestly, if people are willing to invest and make a priority of their cybersecurity, you really could stay ahead of the threat actors. The problem with AI is it's leveling the playing field. They're catching up. And so there are, as they get more familiar and more tools are becoming available. There's the big Anthropic news everybody's talking about the last few weeks here, where they released a agentic, which is an agent base, right? Not generative, where it's generating stuff and etc., but it actually is an agent that can work independently if it's told what to do. It's not fully autonomous, but it's primarily under a instruction set autonomous. That's scary. They released one, and within a few minutes, they actually were able to breach a hardened operating system that is kind of the gold standard of Linux operating systems, again, within a few minutes. Crazy stories. I mean, in fact, one of them, they were labbing out some stuff with an agentic, and he kind of set it loose in this particular environment, told it to see if it could break into a very secure environment. And the guy went to lunch, the engineer, the scientist engineer went to lunch, and it actually emailed him while he was at lunch and found his email address and said, I'm in your system. Oh my God. He was eating his lunch within 30 minutes. This is the stuff that's, kind of scary. So the point is that they're, it's leveling, they're catching up as the threat actors get a hold of this stuff, right? They're going to be able to use it in ways we haven't thought of. So you've got to really make sure your systems are hardened and you've got the ability to, respond, and actively detecting the threats the sooner you catch it is really important. So we're getting to a point where even smaller SMB businesses, right? You're even 25, maybe 50 employees, 100 employees, you're going to have active, 24/7. The threat actors don't sleep. So, 3 a.m. in the morning, they're still doing their stuff, scanning ports, trying to find a way to hack in. So you're going to have active detection, and that's what a lot of the insurance is starting to call out now, which is active monitoring on your network, using endpoint detection response, using managed detection response techniques to make sure that it can quickly, within minutes, identify and shut down a potential vulnerability or a threat actor that broke in some way, shape, or form. That's just one of many layers. And that's really what the message is anymore in my books, is it really is about layers. There's no one cool tool. My big quote in the book is, a fool with the tool is still a fool. There's no one cool tool that's going to just automatically all of a sudden make you super secure. You have to have all of the layers.
Yeah. So tell us about the books. And
Yeah, kind of excited. I've got a new book coming out here in June. It's called the Visible Ops is a series. We wrote a series back in the mid 2000s. And wildly popular. We've sold thousands of copies of it. A lot of that was through vendor relationship things that met with their vendor stuff. But it's been great. And the latest series of books that we've released over the last 2 or 3 years, the big one is Visible Ops Cybersecurity, because we had a Visible Ops Security book, but now we call it Cybersecurity. And that book is an Amazon bestseller. And excited. It really gets into the first chapters about leadership. And then the second chapter says, do you even have a philosophy around your cybersecurity program? So you got to have a philosophy, and you've got to have it married to leadership so everybody's on the same page. And the third chapter deals with the first 3 series of the books, which were a lot around IT best practices and IT management and processes. So the third chapter of the new book is the efficacy of IT processes. They really matter. A quick short example of that is that if you don't know what your configuration is and it's secure and it's working and it's properly patched and it's in that state, then you move from one secure state to the next secure state. And while it sounds common sense, it's a lot harder to do in IT because one update from Microsoft could touch 1,500 files on your operating system. So there is process that needs to be in place to make that happen, as one example of why processes matter. The rest of that book gets into what we call zero trust, and there are 7 pillars, and it's the layers, and it's really a methodology and a philosophy on how you address security. The other book that I wrote is called Visible Ops AI. That's now an Amazon bestseller as well. It's not how do you deploy AI, how do you use AI. It's saying AI doesn't have a lot of guardrails, and if you're working with AI and deploying it and using it or building things in AI, you need to have governance and need to think about it from the leadership perspective. You need to make sure you're developing it in a way that can put safety net on it and control what the AI can do. And then just talks about a lot of practical things around how you would manage and monitor AI usage so that it doesn't go wild and give away trade secrets or steal or exfiltrate information, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, zero trust is a part of that methodology as well. So again, and then the last book is the one that I said just coming out. It's the anatomy of cybersecurity breaches, really looking at a bunch of case studies like the MGM one that I just shared, drilling down and saying, what did we learn from this? If they would have had this, this, and this in place, likely this breach wouldn't have happened. So we go through a bunch of things, and that one will be out pretty soon. So that's kind of my books in a nutshell, the more recent one.
And the new one's going to be also on Amazon?
Yes, it'll be in Amazon as well. It'll be released there. Excited to get it out there, and happy to continue a conversation. One of the things that we can do is that if somebody wants to reach out, I'll give you my information. I've got an executive. The Visible Ops Cybersecurity book is a 415-page cybersecurity book, and that's a little tough for some executives to get their head around. If you're not a VP of cybersecurity or a CIO or a CISO, you may not want to read a 415-page cybersecurity. So I wrote an executive companion, guaranteed to have no geek speak, and it's a smaller 100-page book. And I would provide an e-copy to your audience if they want to reach out to me. And then the other thing we can do is that we use a third party to actually do penetration testing and vulnerability testing on networks and systems to make sure or look at the vulnerabilities you might have. If you're over trusting your IT, over trusting your current provider or your consultant, we will do that. I can do a few of these, a handful I can offer each month at no cost. You'd pay $2, $3, $5,000 for a pen test. You can Google it. And I can do a few of those, and we do through Galactic Advisors because we don't manage for our clients the cybersecurity and then tell you we're doing a good job of grade ourselves. We have to use a trusted separation of duty third party that's monitoring and pen testing, saying, yep, all the holes. And every now and then things will pop up, right? And changes happen regularly. So then we're very quick to remediate and make sure that those are taken care of as those holes pop up. So I'll give you my information if somebody wants to reach out from your audience here, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So the best way is I've got a business text line. It's 541-359-1269, 541-359-1269. And just text secure 26. And if you put those, my team will reach out. We'd like your email. We'll reach out and collect some information from you and get you a copy of the book, an e-copy. And then if you want to take advantage of a free, no cost, I should say, Pen 1 test, we'd be happy to do that for you. It even looks at AI that's a little bit on some of the systems. And we also have an insurance assessment that we do. What's the likelihood by percentage of your insurance actually paying if you had a claim? Happy to do that. That's the best way to reach out to me. My email address is also, you see my name on the screen, scott.aldridge@ipservices.com. I is in internet, P is in Paul, services with an S on the end.com. Either way, you can always email me as well. Happy to be a resource. Even if you just want to ask a question, I'm happy to give some free advice.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's great. So for everyone who's listening, not only just security, remember TrialLine with two L's.
Yep.
If you're an attorney, especially in the PI field like I am, and you do a lot of trials, or if you do mediations or whatever you need to put together as far as a presentation goes, that's the tool that you want to have.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, Mason. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Scott. And for everybody who's listening to us, please, if you like this episode, like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the SCV Law and Life podcast. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Mason Rashtian, and I'll see you next time for more conversations on law, life, and what really moves the needle.